All right. Hey, Don. Welcome back to the podcast.
How's it going, Danny? I'm glad to be here.
Oh, great. This is second time, third time.
Third time, yeah.
Nice.
Hopefully
Well,
I'm a record breaker.
you have to go back and put in the show notes the different episodes that you were on too, because I know they've all been pretty excellent, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So what I wanted to do is Don's a good friend of mine, and I know that he's got a really good team, and he's been through that journey of building a team, operating a team, and through the years. And I wanted to talk with you, Don. I'm going to go third person and then first person, all that kind of stuff. But about that journey, what was it like? Because I know when I see the team now, or I see you talking about the team, or you guys operating and flipping houses, it can seem like you just did that pretty quickly or you figured it out pretty quickly, but I'm sure that it wasn't so clean and easy. Unless you say, yeah, it was. It took me 1 week and I built my team and they were all perfect and I've never had to let anybody go. Um, but I
No,
doubt that's the
yeah,
case.
it was tough, definitely. And we still make mistakes. We think we're perfect, but we've made some bad judgments recently too. So, it happens.
Okay. Well, let's start just in case people listening haven't heard about you or your podcast or what you're all about. Do you want to give a quick, this is how I got started in the business, this is my story talk?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I started in 2003. I started door knocking and doing pre-foreclosure stuff, subject to deals. Pretty much all I did was subject to for about 5 years. Built a company, but it wasn't a real company. And I think that's part of the conversation today is what does a real team look like? What does a real company look like? I had employees, but I was a bottleneck in my organization. I had to control everything. And a lot of us when we make money we go 15 different directions thinking that everything we touch turns to gold and we're the greatest. And so I had my hands in a whole bunch of other projects unrelated to real estate investing. So I was the decision maker, I was the bottleneck, but then I wasn't present, which I think a lot of people who make a lot of money, especially young like I did, make the mistake of. And when the real estate market turned, it was a noose around my neck. It happened fairly quick. The holes in the ship, I couldn't fill the holes. The money was just going out like crazy, and I sank really, really fast. And so, this time around, I had to lick my wounds and pull myself back up. In 2012, I put my company back together. And I think right out of the gate, I still had some of the tendencies of wanting to control everything, but I learned very quickly that I had to let go. And that's going to be, I think, a huge part of the conversation today is just getting out of the way and letting people be who they are and letting them be successful, for you.
Yeah, which always sounds a lot easier to do than it actually is.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's not easy, especially when you're built like we are entrepreneurs. We're control freaks, right? I mean, and we're betting the farm on our ability to get things done, and we want to make sure it gets done. And so sometimes we think our way is the only way. So
Yeah. Yeah, it is hard. And, when you do give that freedom sometimes and the mistakes are made, it's so tempting to go back to, I'll just deal with it.
right.
And I still find even just this week, I've done that, and I should know better. But yeah, so how, at what point did you decide to start building a team? Like, where were you at in the business? Where were you at with number of deals, or, maybe a conversation happened that sparked this idea that you needed to bring somebody on?
It kind of right out of the gate. Andy McFarland, who we both know really, really well, an incredibly smart guy. I heard him on a podcast a while back, and he says, "Hire for where you want to be." And I didn't realize how important that was to an operation and to your growth, early on. But now it really kind of sticks in because that's kind of what I did by accident. I was having coffee with a good friend of mine, and he was a fantastic manager. And I knew that I was going to need a project manager, moving forward as I was building a rehab company, and I was just putting things back together. And he asked me how he can be involved. And so I painted a picture of what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. And I said, follow me on my first couple of projects and see if you feel like it's a fit for you. And that's Lucius, who I talk about a lot. He's my project manager now. And he did. He followed me. He learned it, and he, through the handful of years, he's become an excellent project manager. So he was kind of right out of the gate. I didn't have money to pay him. On the first couple of projects, he just followed me to kind of learn and see if he wanted to do the job. And then after that, we kind of carved out a very, very small amount of money per month. I think I paid him like $2,000 a month for a handful of months. He was kind of in the same situation I was in. He was between jobs. He couldn't get hired anywhere. And so he was kind of taking what he can get at the time. And then, of course, through the years, I've been able to pay him a lot more and reward him a lot more for that. So part of it was luck. Part of it was just kind of, like I said, having a cup of coffee with the guy and him being interested in what I was doing. And right after him and I agreed that he'd come on board, I reached out to another guy I knew who basically was a broker. And, I said, I need somebody running ARVs, getting us access to properties. This is what I'm going to build. I painted this picture of this grand thing I'm going to build. Do you want to come along? And, and of course he said yes. And, he was a broker and agent. He had his own income at the time. And so he came on board to kind of help out. And it was just the three of us for, I want to say probably a good year and a half or so, maybe two. We opened the office that I'm in now. We actually sat on the floor and put our desks together ourselves. And we had this big space that we really didn't need, but I kind of knew that I was going to build a team in it. So, it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't perfect. I had control of everything. I was doing everything. I was trying to do everything. And even with Lucius and Chong aboard, I think I was still trying to project manage and trying to, basically micromanage the ARVs and the processes. And it wasn't until I was rehabbing, I think we were doing like 4 or 5 houses a month, and I was late to pick my kid up from school. I was late to meet a contractor to pick a paint color on a house of all things. And I needed to get back to the office to do, to balance the invoices and submit for reimbursements to the investors so I can get my draw for the week. Otherwise I was going to be out of money. And I was closing the door to my truck, crossing the street. And I just remember thinking, this sucks. Like I love the real estate business, but I was in that moment of this really sucks. And because I hadn't let go, right? I hadn't let Lucius just have project management. And that was my aha moment. It's time to get out of the way, and let them make mistakes. If they make mistakes, they make mistakes. It's okay. They'll learn from it. I make mistakes every single day. I learn from it. I move on. My business is built on failure. The reason why I'm the businessman I am today is because I screwed up so bad when the market crashed, not being prepared, not running things wisely. And, I say it like it's easy, let your team make mistakes and get out of the way. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but I've been so rewarded for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, because you had said that, you were still doing some of those things, and I wanted to get out of the way and let them make mistakes and do it. But don't you think that it's not so black and white? I mean, for somebody to hire somebody and then say, figure it out, go ahead and make your mistakes, that there's the transition time where you've got a lot of knowledge that they don't have.
Right.
And so, it can be tempting to abdicate, right? It's like, well, it's yours. That's your deal. You take off and run with it. Do you find that there's, maybe a way to speed that up to where you can transfer your knowledge to them rather than just letting them go off without sort of the micromanagement?
Well, I think that, first of all, I think speed it up I don't think there's a way to speed it up. I think the mistake that we make is we don't actually invest the time. So what I did, looking back on it now, like I'm not a genius. I'm just a guy who figured out that if I have something that needs a value add and I can find the money to make that work, and then I can put it together and add the value, I can make a profit. That's it. That's as smart as I am. And I've done really well doing that. Looking back on it now, like what I did with Lucius and what I did with other people in my organization by accident, we now do on purpose. Lucius followed me on a handful of projects, and then I kind of followed him on a handful of projects, but I still had control. And that was the problem, is I still had control, and I still wanted to pick the paint color, and I still wanted to do this, and I still wanted to do that. And it was when I finally said, you know what, you can have the control and call me if you have questions. And then I got to the point of, don't call me, you got this. That happened over a period, I want to say really it should have happened over 6 months, but I really didn't let go for probably almost 2 years. And what I actually accidentally did was develop him into a strong employee. Like I transferred that knowledge. And so when you're developing somebody, when you're hiring somebody, I've learned that you can't just dump the whole job on them and walk away. You're going to overwhelm them. You're going to
Yeah.
scare them. They're going to fall flat. They're probably going to quit. You know, even with my office manager, I would give her a piece of the puzzle. I would educate her on how, you know, we do it, the system in our office is. And then I would say, okay, when you come up for air and you have time on your hands, come back and I'll give you another piece. And so over a period of several months, I added her pieces of those positions. And until I added them all to her, I was doing them. And so as I offloaded them onto her over a period of time, I built her into who she is. If I would have given her everything I was doing the day she walked in the door, she wouldn't be here with me now. And so, and I think we still in our organization, like we've hired 2 TCs recently and it didn't work out. I wasn't involved in that hiring process, but we basically dumped the whole position on them. They lasted a week and basically, you know, ran for the fences. So we still, like I said, we still kind of make that mistake. And then we take a step back and, okay, well, what do our most successful people look like? Why are they who they are? And it's because we invested the time into building that foundation and then building them up brick by brick into that strong, substantial employee.
Was the office manager, whenever you piece by piece added to the position the responsibilities, was that intentional or was that a little bit more of just circumstances?
It was a combination of both. I had been through, I'd been through 2 other people. One person, I don't think I was communicating clearly the expectation of the job through the year she was with us. And then the second person was somebody who kind of was a gap stop. You know, after she was a family member, somebody that worked for us, she came in, but she wasn't really capable of taking the role where I needed to go. And so when we brought Cass in, I knew that I couldn't bury Cass with everything that everybody else was doing. And so that was somewhat intentional. And then I realized how smart and capable she was. And so I went, okay, I can give you a lot more than I expected. So here's some more stuff. So I got a lot more off my plate than I expected when I brought her on. I would love to say that it's all 100% intentional at the time that that I did some of these things, but really I think the takeaways are what I learned from doing stuff by accident. Yeah. And, you know, building that, you know, developing that person, you know, Justin Williams is a guy we both know, you know, he has Vanessa, you know, Vanessa ran his organization, you know, he'll say the same thing. She wasn't who she is now when he hired her. He developed her into that person, and that's who she is today is because of that. And so I think that we want plug and play when we're hiring, and we all get caught in that trap. I wish I had somebody that could just plug into a position and walk away. Yeah. But really that's the worst thing you can do to your organization. You're not going to have stability long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you said that it was 2 GCs, right? That you guys kind of dumped everything on and then it didn't work out.
Transaction coordinators.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so learning from that, what are you going to do differently, you know, with them whenever you hire new ones, if you haven't already?
So no, we're in the process of looking for one right now. And actually what we've done is, instead of looking, you know, I always say hire the position and not the experience. You know, I say that, I've said that for years, but still we looked for the experience for a TC. And then we brought them in, and, you know, we're not traditional transaction coordinating. We're a real estate investment company. We push for timelines. We're doing, you know, we're doing 30 plus contracts a month. You know, we have, and that's just on the buy side. And then we have the sell side. We're not your traditional company. And so when somebody has the experience as a traditional TC comes in and we dump what we are on them, it can blow their mind, right? It can kind of break them. So what we decided to do is we want teachable and coachable. We go back, we always do this. We huddle back and okay, what was the mistake we made in that hire? We want teachable and coachable. So now we're looking for an admin assistant, somebody who is kind of an up and comer. That was what Cass was. She was she's an accounting student, and we hired her just to do our books, and we realized that, you know, she was more capable, and we kind of developed her. We're kind of looking for that same person. So we're looking for an admin assistant that we can develop into a TC. So we're going back to give me a blank slate and let me build upon it. Mm-hmm. And because that's what's been successful for us every single time. Our best employees have been the blank slates. You know, Lucius was not a construction manager. He was a manager of people, but not construction. I can put him up against any project manager out there to run circles around him. He was developed into that, you know. Cass, she handles all my investor relations. She handles our accounts payable. She's doing our transaction coordinating right now. She's actually overwhelmed to a certain degree, but she's capable of handling it because we built her into that person. So now we're trying to split her into two positions, but that's a whole different story, of course. But she's capable, but we didn't find that person in the interview. We built that person.
Huh. Okay, so if you're looking for the blank slate, how are you finding the right fit for your organization or for the position?
Right. So we're looking for teachable and coachable, somebody who is, ready to roll up their sleeves and go to work and learn, that doesn't feel like they know it all already. That's part of, usually avoiding hiring the positions, because usually when they know the position, they come in and they feel like they can make changes in your organization to fit them. They need to fit your organization. And then we're just looking for somebody that has the right, cultural fit. Are they the right person for our organization? Do they fit who we are as a company? We don't need negative Nancy's. We don't need, people who are gossip or problem in our organization. We want people who had long-term, either jobs or schooling that stick. So, we're looking for who they are as a person. And then, we have a few tests for computers and stuff like that. Can they actually do the computer work? But right now, that's what we've done is we went back to the drawing board for the transaction coordinator position. And we understand it's probably going to take us 6 months to a year to develop that person into who we need them to be for that job.
Nice. So do you have any favorite interview questions or anything like that kind of bring out some of those things in people, whether they feel like they already know it all or, don't have the ability to be kind of sculpted that way?
Yeah, there's a couple things we do in the interview that, one of the things that I was good at with sellers when I was doing the acquisitions stuff was I would ask a probing question. I would shut up and let them talk. And so we try to do that in the interview, because people, if you get them talking, they'll end up telling you a lot of who they are by accident. That wall will come down. They'll tell you a lot of who they are. So, we've had people basically tell us that, they're going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Not intentionally, but they tell us that. I ask them what gets them excited. What motivates you? What gets you excited? What would make you just love to come to work in the morning? That's a question I ask, because I want to see, are they motivated by money? Are they motivated by just being with a good company? Are they motivated by having a lot of things to do? What motivates that person? That's what I'm trying to get at. So that one's a big one for me. Some people aren't motivated by money. Sometimes they're motivated about building something, about being part of something that's growing.
Which would be a great person to have.
Which would be a great person to have. And that's that, so we'll ask questions, along those lines and try to draw that out.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, that's helpful. I like that. I always, whenever you find a good question in interviews that really gets people to open up, it's amazing. And then you ask another one and they say what you want to hear. And it's like, well, that question sucks.
Exactly,
it's too easy to know what the answer is with that kind of question.
Yeah.
Or it should be, right?
Right.
We were just talking the other day about some of the funny interviews that we've had here with people, some crazy people. And, we do quite a bit of screening too before they even come in for the in-person. So it's kind of funny when they make it through that and then you still have a weird in-person interview. We started doing group interviews. We get at least 3 people, and that's been an interesting thing. I really enjoy having those interviews. Have you ever done that?
No, I haven't done it. I haven't done it yet. No. What's the dynamic like? How does that?
Yeah, it's nice because you would think at first that it would be hard for the people interviewing because you're competing for a position with people in the same room. But what I noticed immediately was it actually is nice because it buys people time to think about their answer while somebody else is answering.
Right.
You don't ask the same person first every time for every question. And so it's kind of cool. And then you see how they kind of interact. There was one guy that we had that was a complete jerk, and it came out because of the way he acted towards the other person in their interviewing, and it was almost immediate, like, that guy sucks. There's no way we're going to hire this guy.
Right.
And I know, so that was pretty cool. So we try to do that from now on for every position. And kind of, it takes a little bit longer to get the people and coordinate it so that all of them can be there. But then you're also saving a lot of time because you've just interviewed 3 people at the same time instead of having all these different scheduled times that you've got to take out of your day to do it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, you had. I had a question here. Did you have trouble letting go? And you've already kind of answered that. So I'm gonna to move on to another one. What is? Well, actually, I want to go back to one that I don't have written down. You had said when you were bringing, I think it was the office manager and that. Oh no, it was for the second person, the agent or broker,
Right.
that you had the plan. This is what I want to build. Can you
Yeah.
explain a little bit of what that plan was?
It wasn't so much a plan as it was a vision. Like I was able to paint the picture of what I wanted to build as a company. I wanted to be, like right out of the gate, I wanted to be a 10 a house a month, 100 rehab a year company. That was my goal. We're this year because of wholesaling, I gotta preference that, we're going to be somewhere over 200 houses this year.
Nice.
Which is really, really nuts because it far exceeded, any goal I had ever set. But right out of the gate, I wanted to be, this big company. And so I was able to paint that picture and what that meant financially, and that essentially if you're part of the team that helps me build that, you're going to be rewarded for that. And so I was able to paint that picture and, I don't, maybe they didn't have better options at the time, or maybe I just did a really good job of painting that picture, but a lot of people, okay, so that leads me to say, the objection I get from a lot of people when it comes to hiring. A lot of people will get in their head and they'll think, well, why would, I'm a new company. I can't keep them busy. Why would they come work for me? Or I can't pay them what they want right now. Why would they come work for me? And I always think back to that moment where I couldn't pay these guys what they were worth, but I was able to show them that we were going to get to a point where they're going to be rewarded far more than they probably would have been had they taken a different job at that time.
Absolutely.
And yeah. And so, people need to get out of their head and stop, if you don't have enough calls coming in to hire lead manager, maybe you do a stay-at-home mom part-time or a college student who needs side work and it's part-time work. It's not full-time. You don't have full-time, but could lead to a full-time position. You got to start looking outside the box. I was talking to a guy who didn't feel like he could hire an acquisitions manager because, he didn't have all the pieces in place to keep the person busy. And after talking to him in depth, come to find out his son's an agent, and his son and his wife are his buyer's agent and selling agents. And his son's been begging to be part of the business. And we came to the conclusion that his son would be a perfect acquisitions manager for him. So, we just, sometimes we don't see what's right in front of our face. Sometimes we get in our own head and we don't give these people or these options opportunities. And that's something that I think I did well. And again, I don't want to say it was purposeful. Maybe it was by accident, but I did it well, and it worked out really well for me. And I suggest people definitely do it.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate your point about a couple things. Why would people want to come and work for you if you can't keep them full time, or you're a smaller company, and the whole thing about what motivates the person is huge, right?
Right.
Like you said, that's really big. It's not always the same thing. It's not about how much they're going to make.
Right.
And then the other thing is that you had a plan. It's like, hey, I'm showing you what we're trying to achieve. And isn't that the point of a team? Right? If you're just hiring for this position, like you probably would experience at many jobs where you're going and interviewing and it's all about the position, but it's hardly ever about what the hell is all this for? Like, what is the goal of this team that I'm going to be joining? What are we going for? What are we trying to do? If there's not some sort of mission or idea behind what even you're doing, how could anybody really get excited about it, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that's really, really big, and being very clear about what that is. We started changing a lot of our ads, our job postings to reflect that and be a little bit more about that rather than the position. Just because it's like, we want somebody that's interested in this mission, like in this thing that we're doing. It's just been pretty cool. Do you guys ever do that in your job postings?
We do, actually. One of the mistakes I made early on is I would give this big old job posting where you had to tell me like how many ping pong balls would fit in the 747, and there would be strict instructions on how you had to deliver your resume, like it had to be in PDF. And so I had all these like things that would filter people out, and by the time you got through it, I figured you'd be perfect. And 9 times out of 10, the people weren't perfect then either. So we took all that out and we ended up with CAS. We went through the whole thing, and Chong and I went through it, and we took all those stipulations out and just made the ad really, really basic for kind of fit who we were looking to find. We hired, one of my strongest team members. So I was way overthinking. We get caught up in, look, we're in higher level mastermind group, right? And there's a lot of talk about different personality tests and different ways of hiring and different ways of screening your people. And I think those tools are great in a lot of ways, but I also think they're a distraction. I think they keep us from looking at good people. There's a couple of tests out there that would have just, based on what I say I want, and would have disqualified me from hiring my best acquisitions guy. I would not have hired him had I been relying on a test. With him, I relied on my gut, and he's phenomenal. So I think sometimes we put all these hoops in place in hiring, and it really just comes down to the person. Does the person fit your organization? Are they teachable and coachable? Can you mold them into who you need them to be? And does your gut tell you that they're the right fit? And sometimes I found great people both ways, and I'm not gonna lie, both ways, but some of my strongest people just came down to my gut. So sometimes I think we overthink it.
Well, yeah, and then you ask somebody how they did something, right? And if they give you an answer like, I trusted my gut, that doesn't really help me. And then so, it's like, well, we got this process in place that speaks for my gut when, how can it really, right? And so you jump through all those hoops. This is sort of related to a conversation I had with my dad recently, because he told me about a book called My Father's Business, which is the story of a Dollar General store. And what I found really fascinating was his grandfather, I think, started the business, but his dad kind of grew it quite a bit. And his problem with him learning the business, so this is the grandson, the guy that wrote the book, who eventually became the CEO of Dollar General. When he was trying to learn the business from his father couldn't really teach him how he did things. It was kind of like this instinctual entrepreneurial thing where it's like, I can do it and I know what to do almost instinctually, that I have a hard time explaining how I make those decisions. So it's like, well, why do you do this? And so I don't know. I just do. And some of that we have to find our own way of doing that, right? And it's almost like the whole gut thing. It's like you've got to let that entrepreneurial part of you kind of do things rather than always trying to get the exact process from somebody else, right? And I think some of us miss out in trying to. It's good to see that somebody else did something and learn from them and try to do the same thing, but we should always maybe put the blinders on a little bit and try to forge our own way and find a different way sometimes.
I agree. And that also goes to the point of, letting your team make mistakes. The reason why, like, my gut is the way it is because I would screw up an appointment. I'd go and meet with the seller and screw the appointment up, and I get in the car on Monday morning, quarterback myself. What could I have said different? Should I have said, shut up here? Should I have asked a question there? Should I have not made the offer? And Monday morning quarterback myself, developed my gut, developed my instincts. Now, if I talk to a seller, which I don't get to do that often, but if I talk to a seller, I know the second I have you or the second I've lost you. I just know it because I've honed that. And that's from failure. That's from making mistakes. My gut and my instinct with people is from making mistakes and making bad judgment calls on people. And so if you want your team to have that instinct that you have, to be able to make decisions quickly and efficiently, you have to let them have a failure here and there. I'm not talking about betting the whole farm on your team's decision, but you have to let them make certain judgment calls. One of the things I've also learned is sometimes the way they do it was better than the way I do it. So, you got to let them make those mistakes. That's how I think as entrepreneurs we hone that instinct. We're not born with it.
Right. And that's why his father was able to make the better decision because he had made mistakes that led up to him instinctually knowing, if I do this, I'm probably going to experience this.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I had something. Anyway, I'll remember what it was. How do you monitor the progress of your team and success of your team? Yeah, is there a way that you're kind of like saying, okay, this guy's doing really well and this guy maybe either needs to go, and it could be a gal, of course, guy or gal. This person's doing really well. I need to spend a little bit more time with this person. I mean, how do you kind of feel that out? Because like you said, you can't just give them everything, hope that they succeed. and wait till they don't?
I mean, it's a great question, and it really depends on the position and the person. If there's a mistake that's been made, we sit down and we work through. Like, I don't throw a fit. I don't get mad. We sit down and work through. Okay, how would I have done it differently? What was the result of the mistake? What would you have done differently? We talk it out so that they're learning, a different way of doing and moving forward. If production isn't where I want it to be in the organization, we have a conversation about, I, how do I put this? I think so many people they say, basically, be slow to hire and quick to fire. I think some people are a little too quick to fire. Like, I try to look at, okay, if the person's not where I need them to be right now, can I get them where I need them to be? Early on, I was a really, really, I was a bad manager. I was just a really bad manager. I thought everybody should have my same work ethic, my same ability. And if they didn't, I was firing them. I was throwing fits. And I was an assistant manager for a restaurant, and my boss basically, he pulled me aside. It's like, you can't expect people to be. And that's all he said to me, but that stuck with me through the years. And I realized that first of all, you got to give them the power to be who they are in your organization. And if they're the right fit for that, then it's your job to get them to their best version of themselves by teaching them and coaching them. And the other thing I learned by being a bad manager was I would fire people and they wouldn't even see it coming. And I realized that they weren't failing me. I was failing them, because it's my job to make sure that I'm having that conversation about where your shortcomings are and where I need you to go. And if I'm having those conversations and you're teachable and coachable, then I'm going to get you there. I'm going to get you to that finish line. If we're having those conversations and there's no improvement, then it's going to be obvious to both of us that it's time for me to set you free and let you go be the best version of yourself somewhere else.
Yeah, I love that.
And so, yeah, I learned that the hard way and by sucking, again, by failure. But so now I make sure we have those conversations. The second you're falling short, okay, how can I help you? Where is the disconnect? For acquisitions, how, we're monitoring the leads. Is the leads that are coming through right now? Should we be doing different kind of mailers? Should we be doing different kind of, marketing aspects? If something's coming off of the internet, are we calling it back right away? Are the things we can be doing in our organization as a team to help you close more efficiently and be more successful, right? So, and we're having those conversations. And if I'm having those conversations with you and we're not collectively coming to a place of improvement, then it's time for you to go. And we both obviously know that. And the writing's going to be on the wall. It's not going to be a surprise to
Yeah, that's good. So as you've gotten bigger, and I would imagine, there's been a lot of talk in the group and here in our flipping business with Melissa running it and what she's been doing of, maybe it's not a thing of getting a whole lot more leads. Maybe we should focus on, tightening up the ship and making sure that we're doing everything with what does come in, and that all of our, systems and processes, everything is optimized as maybe can be, or just a little bit more, so that we can squeeze more out of what comes in. Have you been enacting something similar in your team, and what does that look like?
I mean, yeah, of course, we're trying to make sure that we have, the proper systems, within our organization for things to move efficiently and to get the results we need to get. We're always looking at marketing and how efficiently we're doing that kind of stuff. We're looking at our follow-up systems in our organization. Follow-up has been 40% of the contracts we've got this year.
40%.
40%. I'm tracking it like a crazy person. We just had a conversation today. We have X amount of leads in our system for the last 8 months, from January till now. I want to say it's like 4,700 leads in our system right now. And we're going through, we figured out that at 40 calls a day each from our lead managers, that we can get through those in 8 weeks. We have a connection rate of about 50% roughly, when they're outbound calling to follow up with leads that are already in our system. So we should be able to get through them in 8 weeks. And we're like, okay, and the second we get through them, we're going to start the next 8-week cycle, and we're going to mine that data. So, we're trying to squeeze, shake every bush and squeeze every piece of fruit we possibly can to make things happen. And I want to reiterate, 40% of the contracts that we have gotten this year have been from follow-up. Follow-up's been the game changer.
That's crazy.
It's a significant game changer for us.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I've noticed is, so like our team, we're monitoring our lead managers, and we'll have the inbound calls from direct mail and different things we're doing, but we do an outbound follow-up calls. And so roughly 50% of it depends on the day, anywhere from 25 to 50% of our appointments in that day are from follow-up phone calls. And those follow-up phone call appointments seem to be our best converting appointments, is something we're finding as well. Like wow. I was closing in June. We were contracting properties from callers that called into our system in January and February. If that makes sense. So it's crazy. And I don't think people really, really dive into that and shake that out as much as they possibly can. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, it's a huge tip. And I hope anybody listening kind of rewinds their, a couple of minutes and listens to that again, because it's gold. I mean, it's huge. I mean, with that percentage, and then the fact, I liked hearing that the fact that they're the best converting, and, to be able to know that is really huge. And looking at that and understanding that these are the things that you can look at. It's not always about, well, what other kind of magical lead generation scheme can I come up with? It's more of like knowing those kinds of things. And I can't wait. Don, we talked, and you're going to get like a sneak peek of the Flip Pilot system that we're launching. And I can't wait for you to see this dashboard stuff that tracks all of that. And we've been keeping it under wraps like crazy, but I'm looking forward to showing you like a lot of stuff that's going to help you do that even more. It's insane.
I'm excited. The KPIs, the key performance indicators, being able to track and know your response rate, your lead conversion rate, your appointment, your contract, all that, and to be able to see it and have it at your fingertips is huge. Because, I mean, right now it's kind of archaic what we're doing. We have to reverse engineer certain things to get to that data, and to be able to have it at our fingertips is going to be huge. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. No, I can't wait. And there's things that we've been focused on here a lot of knowing of, when the phone call comes in, when we look at all these kinds of things that we're doing in this whole process of marketing and generating these leads, the phone call comes in, at the point of even whether that phone call was answered live, like how often, and if it wasn't, how quickly was it responded to? Because if you don't know those things, it could be that people are being responded to, but it's 3 hours later. And it's like, how many other investors did they talk to in that 3 hours?
Right.
And is one of those already on their way over to make an offer to this person in person?
Well, I have a perfect scenario. We were on CallRail, and we switched to a different system at the beginning of the year, and we kept our CallRail live and pumping, but it doesn't funnel into the new system. It goes to my dispo guy who was doing acquisitions at the time. And so we had a CallRail call that we mailed to sometime last year, come in, go to his voicemail. He was out doing his dispo stuff, didn't check his voicemail, didn't realize he had it. And ended up, once he knew he had it, he had followed up. They had already set an appointment with 2 other companies in that time. So, my acquisitions guy went out there and talked to him, and they want to hear this other company's offer before they, are willing to talk to us about an offer. But hopefully we built enough good rapport that we're going to end up getting the deal, but they may not have called any other company if we would have gotten that call when it came in and answered the way we answered. One of the other game changers for us is the whole customer experience. You get a live person. You call in, you get a live person. They're building rapport, and we take the customer through this whole, like we built out this kind of customer experience pipeline to the point of, from the first call to the contract, that I think has made a difference. The 2 things that I think are huge for me, and us doubling our volume this year, is the customer experience. We changed because we used to basically have our acquisitions people answering the phone, and the follow-up. We weren't, as much as I want to say we were doing follow-up the last handful of years, we weren't even touching the surface of real follow-up. And I think that 99% of the investors out there don't even realize how important follow-up is, and they're not even scratching the surface in their organization. And that, we think 40% of our contracts come from follow-up right now, and we've doubled our business. How did we double our business? We doubled our business because of follow-up. So it's, those 2 things are game changers in anybody's organization. If they're not taking notes, they're crazy.
Great, great. Yeah, and we've got the automated follow-up stuff, and I can't wait to get your opinion on that too, because maybe there's some ideas that we have or that you have that we can also throw in there to help with some of that. And we did do the thing where we're integrating that phone system through the system and not having to have a separate phone system. That way we have control over,
Perfect.
all that data. And so you can
Yeah.
see all of your data because it's all in the one system. It's just going to be great.
Fantastic. Yeah.
But yeah, next week.
Perfect.
But so what struggles, would you say, what are some of the biggest struggles? Are there any kind of moments in your business while you've been building the team or having the team that were super trying for you, or something that you remember as being like a really tough situation?
Well, I mean, obviously, initially, letting go was hard. It's the hardest thing you're going to do as an entrepreneur. It's the scariest thing you're going to do. That was really really hard. I think the other struggle is just we you start getting successful, you got your team going, you start thinking, like I said, you can do this test and that test, you can pick the perfect person, you can plug them in and plug and play. And I make that mistake, I think, repeatedly. I have to go back and check myself, and we have a conversation as a team again as to why and how we hire the best people. So, and then, I honestly want, like right now, our team is about twice the size as it ever was. I'm wanting to conquer new markets. There's a lot of things that I'm wanting to do. And when I put this together in January, when I kind of said, okay, I'm going to make this switch, I basically threw it against the wall. And I was like, this is where we're going. And, this is some of the ways we're going to get there, but I'm not exactly sure how it's going to look. I threw it against the wall and I was like, where are the cracks? And let's fill the cracks as we go. And one of the challenges, I think, is just, making sure that I communicate with the team on a regular basis to, get their vibe, the pulse, where they're at, and reassuring them, as to where we're going as a company. Because there's hiccups, especially when the growth, we doubled our volume this year. So the massive growth we've had, there's hiccups and road bumps along the way for that, stuff kind of, transaction coordination and issues with escrow. And so just keeping the team focused and making sure that I don't let my ego or, myself get in the way of that I'm listening, I'm hearing what they have to say, I'm acknowledging it, and that I'm giving them the appropriate feedback to that conversation so that they're all on board with the vision. I don't run my organization as my way or the highway. It's like, okay, what's your concern? Okay, how do we address this concern? Like I had a meeting and there were some concerns raised, and I pointed out, I told you guys, when we started this, that we're going to throw it against the wall to see where the cracks were, that we're going to work them out, and we're going to get to a certain point. I said, did we get to that point? And they're like, yes. And I said, okay. So, I was able to lead you there, and we were able to work out the issues. Okay, well, now we're going to the next step, and we're going to work out these issues too. And I was able to bring them back into okay, we're behind you 100%. That makes sense.
Nice. Yeah, no, it does. How do you structure those meetings if there even are meetings, to get everybody back up to speed? Are you guys doing that weekly, and are you following some sort of format for your meetings?
I'm doing it weekly, and I'm not going to lie and say that I'm doing a format. I'm not right now. I come with certain things I want to touch on and work through with the team, things that I feel like are systems that we need to integrate or issues that we need to address. And then, I open it up to any comments or questions or concerns that they have, and we talk through any of those. And we make it about a 30-minute meeting. It's fairly quick. We have it every Tuesday. In fact, that's what I was doing this morning. I meet with the whole team, and then I'll meet with my acquisitions people separate and work through anything they have going on, any properties that we need to discuss or address, and that are kind of have issues or whatever. And then I set them free for the day. So we're getting more and more structured as we go. But like I said, for me, it's more of, I don't know how to explain it. It's like everybody wants everything to be perfect before they even start. And I'm more of, this is the vision, and I'm going to throw it against the wall and figure it out, And okay, I need this system and this process. Like we had a big gap between the front of the house, the acquisitions, and the back of the house, which is the process of transaction coordination and everything. The communication, there was a communication gap on properties and projects and escrow issues and stuff like that. And we had to figure out a system for making sure that communication gap was closed. We didn't know that was going to be an issue until we threw a whole bunch of stuff on the fire, but it opened up that issue. So we had to basically put a system in place. And as we see issues open up from certain things we do, we just kind of build the system into the process. And it's a team effort in doing that. Again, I don't have to figure it all out. We have a conversation as a team, and we implement, we try certain things, we figure out what works.
So you provide where you want to go and then say, hey, let's all figure out how to get there together.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think we ought to end on that. And also because, like we talked about right before we started this, outside is the lawn truck. So they're going to be starting up the blowers and the weed eaters and all that stuff right next to my window here in probably a couple minutes. But this has been a great episode, Don. I always enjoy talking to you, and looking forward to seeing you again in October for a whole week, right? So that'll be
cool. A whole week. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be sick of me. I'm going to be following you around.
That's all right. No, I enjoy your company, man.
Yeah, and then obviously next week that Flip Pilot demo is going to be fun together. So thanks again, and everybody. Don Costa from the Flip Talk podcast. If you're not listening to it, if you haven't subscribed to it, I highly recommend it. Of course, I think it's one of the best out there, other than one called FlippingJunkie. I think that one's really good too. But so do you have anything left do you want to mention to the audience, and then also for them to contact you if anybody would like to?
Yeah, one of my realizations when I started, they had did not have Google and YouTube and all kinds of crazy things. So if you're just getting started in real estate and you're listening to this, you have no excuse. There's all kinds of information out there. And if you're in the process of growing a business right now, again, you have no excuse. Get out of your way. There's no reason why you can't make great things happen. So just go out there and do it. So, and then if you want to reach out to me, get a hold of me, you can always hit me up at don@fliptalk.com, and I'll definitely respond to you there. So
great. Amen.
Yeah.
All right, Don, thanks a lot. We'll talk soon.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Have a good one.